You know that feeling when everyone in a room laughs and you just know the joke is about you? That was me last night. My name is Eli Turner. I am 31 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I have been the failure of the Turner family. The reunion was in my parents' backyard. Fairy lights strung between the oak trees, the smell of barbecue in the air, and voices carrying that mix of fake warmth and quiet judgment. When I walked in, a few heads turned. My cousins whispered. My uncle chuckled under his breath. "Still doing that dead-end gig, huh?" I laughed it off, pretending it did not sting, but inside my chest tightened until I could hardly breathe. My hands trembled as I gripped the cold drink, remembering every reunion, every insult. But this time, I was not the same Eli. I had a secret, one that would silence every smirk in that backyard. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know, what city are you listening from, and what time is it right now? Subscribe, because you are going to want to hear this one. Sometimes people say you can never truly escape the place that raised you. For me, that place was Millhaven, a small town with one main street, 2 diners, and a whole lot of opinions. Everyone knew everyone, and in my family, reputation was everything. Success was measured not by happiness, but by how loudly others could talk about it. My father, Rick Turner, was the blueprint of pride. A retired contractor, built like the oak trees in our yard, with a voice that could quiet a room. To him, worth came from the weight of a paycheck and the square footage of your house. He loved me, I think, but only in the way someone loves a version of you that never existed. When I left college early to chase a business idea, he said, "Dreams don't put food on the table, son. Hard work does." But what he really meant was, "You are embarrassing me." My mother, Janice, was the opposite. Soft-spoken, gentle, always trying to make peace between us. She would pat my shoulder at dinner and whisper, "He just wants the best for you." But even she looked down when my father shook his head at me. Her love was quiet, but so was her silence when they mocked me. Then there was Mark, my older brother, the family's golden boy. A real estate broker with the perfect wife, perfect car, perfect smile. When he walked into a room, my father's eyes lit up like the 4th of July. At family dinners, I became invisible. Mark would talk about commissions, luxury homes, and his new clients in the city. My father would lean back, grin, and say, "Now that's a career." And then there was Becca, my cousin, the influencer. She made a living showing off her life online, flaunting handbags and filters like badges of honor. Every reunion, she would document the event, always careful to capture everyone's success. Except mine. It was not always like this. There was a time, years ago, when I believed I could prove them wrong. I had a dream, a small tech startup with my college friend, Dylan. We spent nights coding in his basement, fueled by ramen and ambition. I truly thought it was going to change my life. But then, after a bad deal and a betrayal I never saw coming, everything collapsed. I lost nearly everything I had. That was the first time I felt the full weight of my family's judgment. At the next reunion, I remember walking into the same backyard, hearing my father say to a neighbor, "Yeah, Eli tried some business thing. Did not work out. He is driving now." The way he said driving made it sound like a punishment. Becca giggled, asking if she could record me delivering packages with a smile. Even my mother stayed quiet. I laughed with them that day, pretending it was all fine. But later, when I went home, I sat in my car for nearly an hour before getting out. The humiliation burned, but beneath it, something else started to form. A quiet determination. Over the next 2 years, I worked days delivering for a local company and nights building again. This time, smarter, quieter. No one knew. I learned my lesson. Never announce your dreams until they are unshakable. Dylan came back into the picture, and together, we rebuilt our idea. A logistics tech platform designed to help small delivery companies optimize their routes and costs. Every paycheck from my dead-end job went into that project. Every insult became fuel. My father's disappointment became my clock. ticking louder each night as I worked under dim light, coding until sunrise. By the time the next reunion came around, they still saw me as the same old Eli, the one who never quite made it. But they did not know what I had built behind the scenes. They did not know the calls I had taken from investors, or the offer sitting in my inbox that would change everything. In Millhaven, people loved to talk. But soon, they would have plenty to talk about, and for once, the story would be mine. You would think that after years of enduring it, humiliation starts to hurt less. But it does not. It just sinks deeper. The night of the reunion shimmered with false warmth. Soft jazz played from a Bluetooth speaker, kids chased each other around the yard, and the air smelled like grilled corn and charcoal. I arrived early this time, determined to blend in, maybe even enjoy myself. For a while, it almost worked. My father was laughing with the neighbors. My mother was arranging pies on the buffet table, and I stood near the fire pit, trying to make polite conversation. Then Mark arrived. He made his entrance like always, loud, confident, wearing a suit even though it was 90 degrees outside. "Just closed another deal this morning," he said, shaking hands with every relative like a politician. Within minutes, the conversation tilted entirely toward him. He bragged about the new development project he was leading, the investors he had met, the luxury condo he had just sold. My father beamed with pride. "That's my boy," he said loudly, clapping Mark on the back. I stood there, holding a paper plate and nodding when appropriate, pretending I was part of the joy instead of the shadow. Then Becca pulled out her phone. "Let's go live," she announced, flipping her camera toward the group. The screen reflected in her oversized sunglasses as she narrated dramatically, "Welcome to the annual Turner family reunion. Here's our superstar Mark. And look, even cousin Eli made it. In uniform." The crowd chuckled. My shirt bore the small logo of the delivery company I worked for. Clean, professional, but in their eyes, a symbol of failure. Becca grinned at me, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "Smile for the fans, Eli. Tell them what it's like to deliver happiness one package at a time." Everyone laughed. Even my mother's lips twitched before she caught herself. My father shook his head as if embarrassed by my existence. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat, but it sat heavy. "It pays the bills," I said quietly. No one heard me. Or maybe they just did not care to. Dinner followed. Long tables under string lights, glasses of wine, and the kind of laughter that never included me. I sat between my parents, silently eating, counting down the minutes until I could leave. Then my uncle, half drunk and red-faced, stood up and lifted his glass. "Let's make a toast," he shouted. "To success? To the Turners who are out there winning?" Mark raised his glass immediately. "To those of us with real careers," he added, smirking. "Do not worry, Eli. Maybe next year you'll deliver your own trophy." The laughter that followed was like a storm. Loud, sharp, unrelenting. I froze. My face burned so hot it felt like my skin was glowing. My mother looked down at her plate, refusing to meet my eyes. My father chuckled softly, as though to say, "Lighten up, it's just a joke." But to me, it was not a joke. It was years of subtle cruelty, compressed into one public humiliation. I stared at my plate, my fork trembling slightly in my hand. I wanted to disappear, to scream, to say something. Anything. But then, something shifted as I looked around that table. At the people who had laughed at me my whole life, I felt something unexpected. Clarity. Every sleepless night came rushing back, coding until sunrise, eating cold leftovers beside my laptop, watching the numbers grow on our dashboard as our little company took off. They had no idea. Not a single one of them knew that I was sitting there, quietly richer and more successful than all of them combined. And in that moment, the anger turned into something else, a calm, sharp amusement. I smiled. It must have looked strange because Mark frowned. "What's funny?" he asked. I just shook my head. "Nothing," I said softly. Absolutely nothing. Inside, though, I was already planning the next move. the moment when their laughter would stop echoing, and their silence would begin. Because that night, I decided I would not be their joke anymore. I would be their lesson. It is strange how silence can feel heavier than noise. After that toast, I excused myself quietly, slipping away from the table while their laughter still echoed behind me. The cool night air hit my face, thick with the scent of grilled meat and summer grass. The string lights above the patio buzzed faintly, casting a soft golden glow over the yard. I walked toward the edge of the lawn, where the light faded into shadow, and took a deep breath. My hands were still trembling, a mix of anger and adrenaline. I reached for my phone just to distract myself when I noticed a notification glowing on the screen. It was an email from my lawyer. I opened it, and there it was. Final documents confirmed. Acquisition complete. For a moment, the world stood still. I read it again and again, just to be sure. After months of meetings, contracts, and negotiations, the deal had finally gone through. The company I had once driven for, the one whose logo was still stitched across my shirt, was now mine. A quiet laugh slipped out before I could stop it. I covered my mouth, shaking my head in disbelief. They laughed at me for being a driver, I whispered to myself. But now I own the company. The irony was perfect, cinematic, almost cruel. I looked back toward the house, through the glass doors. I could see them still talking, plates piled with food, faces flushed with wine and pride. My father gestured as Mark bragged about some new deal. My mother smiled politely, Becca scrolling through her phone. None of them had any idea how close they were to being silenced by the truth. For years, I had dreamed about this moment, standing tall, proving them wrong, throwing their words back at them. But now that it was here, I felt no need to shout. I realized the sweetest revenge is not loud. It is patient. It is controlled. So instead of storming back in and demanding recognition, I decided to let the truth unfold slowly, like a quiet fire creeping through dry grass. I wanted to see the exact moment their laughter stopped. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, straightened my shirt, and took one last steadying breath. When I walked back inside, I was no longer the same Eli Turner who had been mocked over dinner. I was calm. I was composed. And for the first time in my life, I was the one holding all the power. When I stepped back into the house, the laughter had softened into the comfortable hum of after-dinner chatter. Plates were stacked, wine glasses half empty, and Becca was still streaming on her phone, narrating bits of family gossip to her online followers. I sat down quietly, picking at what was left of my food. For a moment, it felt like any other reunion, except now, I carried a secret so powerful it pulsed beneath my skin. Then, right on cue, my uncle's voice cut through the noise. "So, Eli," he said, leaning across the table, his tone dripping with mock curiosity. "How long are you planning to keep driving around town? Must be hard to make ends meet with gas prices these days." The table chuckled again. Becca raised her phone like a microphone, grinning. "Yeah, Eli, tell us. What's next for our favorite delivery guy?" This time I did not flinch. I looked up, calm, steady, letting the silence stretch just long enough to draw every eye toward me. "Actually," I said, setting my fork down gently, "as of this morning, I will not be driving anymore." Becca snorted, thinking I was joking. Mark smirked, swirling the wine in his glass. "Oh yeah, finally quitting?" I leaned back in my chair, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "No," I said. "The company I work for, I just bought it." The room went dead silent. Even the clinking of silverware stopped. Becca's phone slipped slightly in her hand. Her live stream viewers must have caught the stunned look on her face. Mark blinked, confused. My father frowned, trying to process what I had just said. "You what?" he asked slowly. I nodded, keeping my tone even. "You heard me right. The delivery company, Route Pro Logistics. I just closed on the acquisition this morning. My lawyer confirmed it about 20 minutes ago." Mark laughed, a short, nervous sound. "Come on, Eli, you bought a whole company?" Without saying a word, I reached for my phone, opened the email, and slid it across the table. The Turner family crowded around, eyes darting over the screen. Legal documents, digital signatures, and the final confirmation line. Ownership transfer, complete. Becca's jaw dropped. My uncle's smirk dissolved. Even my father, who had spent years dismissing me, sat back in his chair, silent. "I do not understand," my mother whispered, her hand trembling as she looked at me. "How?" I smiled faintly. "You remember the project I used to work on with Dylan? We built a tech startup that developed logistics software, the kind that helps optimize delivery routes, cut fuel costs, and manage fleets. Root Pro was one of our clients. And now, well, they are ours. No one spoke. The only sound was the faint buzz of Becca's phone still recording. "I guess," I continued softly, "those nights you all thought I was wasting my time after work. I was actually building something." The silence that followed was thick and satisfying. I could see the realization settling in. Every sneer, every jab, every dismissive look they had ever thrown at me now hung in the air, meaningless. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Well, I suppose I owe you an apology, son. I did not know you were—" I raised a hand gently. "It is all right, Dad. You do not owe me anything." I paused, letting my eyes sweep over the table. "You all made it clear what you thought of me. I just decided to stop waiting for your approval and earn my own." Mark's face flushed red. "You could have told us, Eli," he snapped, defensive. "We could have helped you." I met his gaze steadily. "Why?" I asked. "You never listened before." No one laughed this time. Becca quietly turned off her phone. My uncle coughed into his napkin. My mother's eyes welled up with tears she did not try to hide. As for me, I just sat there, calm, detached, almost peaceful. For the first time in my life, I was not the punchline of their stories. I was the headline. In the days after the reunion, something strange began to happen. The same family members who had once brushed me off now could not stop reaching out. My phone buzzed nonstop, text after text, call after call. "Hey, Eli, I was wondering if you're hiring," one cousin wrote, pretending to be casual. "Man, we should catch up sometime," another added. "I've got a few business ideas I'd love to run by you." I stared at the messages, each one dripping with sudden respect that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with opportunity. The same people who could not make eye contact with me before were now desperate to be in my orbit. Even Becca, the family influencer, made her move. She posted a picture of us from the reunion with the caption, "So proud of my cousin Eli. Proof that hard work pays off." The post racked up hundreds of likes, her smile perfectly staged, while she cropped out the part where she had mocked my job just hours before that photo was taken. I did not comment. I did not share it. I did not need to. The truth had already done its work. As for Mark, he took a different route. A few weeks later, he invited the whole family to a dinner at his new office, a thinly disguised attempt to reclaim his title as the successful son. He gave a speech about teamwork and perseverance, throwing occasional glances my way as if daring me to outshine him. I stayed quiet, polite, even smiled when appropriate. But when my father later mentioned that my company had just partnered with the very logistics firm that managed deliveries for Mark's properties, the look on his face said everything. The hierarchy had shifted, and he knew it. My father softened after that night. I think the pride finally broke through his stubbornness. One evening, he called me to the porch, his voice unusually calm. "Eli," he said, "I was hard on you. Maybe too hard. I thought I was pushing you to do better. But I see now you were already doing it." I looked at him, this man who had spent years measuring my worth against my brothers, and for once, I did not feel anger. "Only clarity. You do not owe me an apology, Dad," I said quietly. "Just some respect." He nodded, eyes down. And that was enough. A year later, at the next reunion, things looked very different. The same backyard was draped in new banners, red and white, bold letters spelling out sponsored by Root Pro Logistics. My company, I arrived not in a uniform, but in a tailored suit. People greeted me differently now, with handshakes, admiration, a tinge of envy. The laughter was still there, but it sounded lighter, less cruel. As I looked around, I realized something. I had not just changed my story. I had rewritten the entire family's perception of me. And this time, the silence that followed me was not mockery. It was respect. You know, I used to think revenge had to be loud, that it needed grand gestures, sharp words, and a crowd to witness it. But I have learned something far quieter and far more powerful. Silence can be the loudest revenge of all, because silence is the sound of control. It is the pause after they laugh when realization sets in. It is the moment when the people who once pitied you start searching for your approval. I did not need to humiliate my family that night. Life did it for me. All I had to do was rise. Looking back, I do not hate them. I understand them now. My father's pride was fear. Fear that his son would be smaller than his own legacy. My mother's silence was survival. Even Mark's arrogance came from insecurity. Understanding that does not excuse their cruelty, but it frees me from it. I forgave them, but I never forgot. Because forgiveness is for peace, not amnesia. What I learned is simple. Family should lift you up, not laugh at you. But if they do, let their doubt be the fire that builds your future. Let every insult, every smirk, every word that makes you feel small become the blueprint for something bigger. That night at the reunion changed everything. Not because I proved them wrong, but because I proved myself right. So yes, maybe I was the failure of the Turner family once. But failure was the best teacher I ever had. It made me hungry, focused, and unstoppable. And when I finally stopped chasing their approval, I found something better. Self-respect. So yeah, that is how my family reunion turned into my revenge story. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. And make sure you subscribe, because there are more real stories like this coming soon. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply becoming everything they said you never could be. If you felt that, if you have ever been laughed at and still rose above it, hit subscribe right now. Your story deserves to be heard too.